They're sleek and they go fast and they make lots of noise and everybody is wowed by them. They're deceptively beautiful. It's like Venus flytraps.
바다에 뜬 항공모함에서 비행기가 이륙한다.
Air-to-air missiles, air-to-ground missiles, GPS-guided bombs. One of those frontline Hornets has everything you could need to really just go out there and wreak havoc.
우리는 이 비행기들이 미국 역사에 남긴 흔적들을 잘 모르고 있다.
They had no right to win, but they did, and in doing so, they changed the course of a war.
I lost 22% of the guys in my squadron. 22%, you never forget that.
이것은 오늘을 살아가는 젊은 조종사들과 그들을 여기 있게 한 역사에 관한 이야기다.
I watched every World War movie I could get my hands on as a little kid. The history was one of the things that really drew me to this life.
These were people who were willing to literally bet their lives to go ahead and bring this technology and this new kind of warfare to the forefront. Back in the early 20th century, this is somewhat psychotic.
You are a part of a lineage of people that have been witness to the biggest events of the 20th and now 21st century. You feel that every day you're a part of something bigger.
하지만 이 역사는 논란의 불씨도 안고 있다. 100년이 넘는 세월 동안 해군 항공술은 실용적이지 못하고 비용이 많이 들며 시대에 뒤떨어진다는 비난을 꾸준히 받아왔다. 그리고 지금은 오늘날의 조종사들이 미국의 마지막 조종사 세대가 될지도 모른다는 우려까지 생기고 있다. 이제 전쟁의 양상을 바꿔놓은 무기를 만나보자.
We did our cross country to Vegas. She's a good instructor. I started racing dirt bikes actually. I kind of want to be a professional dirt bike racer, and then quit the racing, went to college, and decided to come in the Marine Corps. And best decision ever made. Yeah, should be pretty cool. Cool. Y'all following him out? Good luck. Thank you.
My mom used to take us to an airport nearby where we grew up, and you could sit out close to the flight line and see people taking off and landing and stuff, and saw planes flying over, like this guy. It kind of captivates a young mind, I think, and it definitely grabbed me early on.
I tell a student, hey, what am I going to teach you how to do here? I want you to learn how to taxi, take off, go out and do something, and you're going to come back and land. And you're going to do that on land, and you're going to do that on a ship.
Every little thing will affect your psyche before you're going out to the boat. You're going over the entire flight 500 times in your head long before you even get there.
You can imagine the instruments and how they're changing. In your head, you can imagine the airplane accelerating faster.
We're going to fly out there. First time you see the carrier that you're going to, it'll be about 15 miles out. and you realize you're going to be landing on there, stopping on what looks to be about a little drop of oil in the sea.
I think universally, the first time you roll up behind the boat, oh crap, is what comes to people's minds. Everybody says it looks like a postage stamp. The first time you go overhead, you look down and think, well, there's no way. They made a bad mistake. Part of the mental preparation is trying to think, okay, I'm gonna see it. It's gonna look different than what I imagine. It's gonna feel different than the simulator. I'm gonna freak out and I'm gonna keep flying.
(20세기) 초 미국인들은 사람이 하늘을 나는 모습을 직접 보기 위해 비행 대회에 모여들었다. 혁신의 시대였음에도 비행기만큼 놀라운 것은 없었다.
These air meets would draw people from all walks of life. It was real popular because here they have these aircraft flying, buzzing around. Oftentimes there were accidents which were almost as appealing as the flying itself.
육군과 해군도 관심을 갖고 최초의 비행 대회에 대표를 파견했다. 육군은 일찌감치 그 가능성을 깨닫고 비행기를 구입하기 시작했다. 하지만 해군은 답을 찾지 못했다. 바다 위에서 비행기를 운용하는 것은 상상도 할 수 없는 일이었다. 그런데 한 중년의 해군 장교만은 비행기와 함선의 조합이 강력한 신무기가 될 것이라 확신했다.
Captain Washington Irving Chambers is sort of an unlikely champion of aviation. He's a product of the 19th century, traditional naval warfare. He graduated from the Naval Academy not too far removed from the Civil War. But Chambers really expressed an interest in aviation. He wanted to look into it and study it. That's why he traveled to some of the air meets that were happening. He would go there to see what the latest technology in aviation was.
1910년 가을, 체인버스는 배에서 비행기를 이륙시킬 만한 담력과 의욕이 넘치는 조종사를 찾기 위해 뉴욕 벨몬트 공원에서 열린 에어쇼에 참석했다. 그 저돌적인 비행사들 중에서도 가장 눈에 띄는 건 유진 일리였다.
In addition to being a pretty good pilot, Ely also had a surprising eye as an engineer. He gets the idea that he can build a wooden flight deck on a warship, like a cruiser or a battleship, and actually get it going fast enough that if he flies his airplane off the end of it, he can actually get it into the air and safely maneuver it. Well, back in the early 20th century, this is somewhat psychotic.
그리고 얼마 후 체인버스는 순양함 버밍햄호에 실제로 나무 갑판을 설치했다. 플랫폼의 규격은 길이가 25m, 너비는 7m에 불과했다. (1910년 11월 14일) 아침, 비바람이 몰아치고 있었다. 일리는 초조하게 기다렸다. 마침내 오후 3시가 되면서 날이 개었다.
So Ely climbed aboard and revved up the engine as much as it would go. And as he went over the edge of the deck and out over the water, he actually descended a little bit quicker than he thought. He thought he might crash, and the wheels actually grazed the water as he took off from Birmingham. But picked up enough flying speed that the wind went beneath the wings, developed some lift, and he was able to take off and fly to shore.
체인버스도 기뻐했지만 아직 움직이는 배에 비행기를 착륙시키는 더욱 위험한 과제가 남아 있었다. 이때 다시 전문가 일리의 지혜가 빛을 발한다.
Ely was facing the prospect of flying into the back of the smokestacks of the ship, so he had to come up with some way of stopping the airplane.
So what they did is they had sandbags connected by ropes, and these ropes were strung across the wooden deck at a series of intervals. And there were a series of hooks beneath the aircraft, and as these hooks snagged on those ropes, the weight of the sandbags there would bring the plane to a stop as it hit the deck.
1911년 1월 18일은 몹시 추웠다. 비행 대회를 마친 일리가 해안가 16km 밖에 펜실베이니아호로 향했다.
Eugene Ely made his approach to Cruiser, Pennsylvania, and successfully got into what is now referred to as the proper glide slope. Hit the deck, and the ropes caught the hooks on the bottom of his aircraft and eventually brought the plane to a stop. And it was just an amazing event. No one had ever seen anything like this before. I mean, you have to think at that time, you're only about 7 years removed, 8 years removed from the Wright brothers' flights. And here you have sailors seeing an aircraft land aboard their ship. It was something that was, really, observing it must have been an experience to remember.
And the amazing thing is, the metaphors laid out by Ely of the flight deck, of the arresting gear, of the tail hook, are things that we still use 100 years later. The man was a visionary.
하지만 유진 일리는 자신의 업적이 낳은 결과를 보지 못했다. 몇 달 후 그는 에어쇼 비행 사고로 목숨을 잃고 만다.
My father was a A6 intruder guy. So as a young one, I got taken to lots and lots of air shows. I'd climb up on my dad's shoulders. Any kid is going to look up and think it's grand and amazing, and they want to do it.
And remember what I told you about the roll-in is that when you see that line down there,
the thought of landing on the carrier is still a very big idea and not ominous, but it's still a heavy thought, landing on a giant chunk of metal in the middle of the ocean.
Yeah, second to last flight for head off to the boat on Monday. So 2 more chances to perfect it before we go. or bracket the mistakes.
When you're preparing to go to the carrier, all the students will grow a mustache. It's kind of maybe a little bit of a badge of courage around the squadron that you're far enough in the program that they're going to let you go to the boat.
Some of the fine young gentlemen going out to the boat are not quite as gifted in the mustache growing department, I guess. Some of them look exceptionally creepy.
I'm not a mustache guy, but then it doesn't help that my mustache is blonde, so it's not coming in too great. But
unless you're a very special girl, you are not going to grow a mustache. But I have every intent of either finding some stick-on mustache, or I'm just gonna draw it on every day because you gotta run with the guys.
Oh, have you seen the one with the Russian guy?
I mean, when I'm at work, I'm one of the dudes. When I get home, it's hair down, skirts, dresses. I like being a girl, and I've found myself to end up being more feminine now than I used to be because it's almost like recharging the estrogen levels when I get home.
It's definitely a competition. Everybody wants to be the best. You know, it doesn't matter if there are Army guys here or Air Force guys here. It's the same thing. Everybody just wants to be the best. With that being said, I mean, Navy guys are my good friends too.
There's always a little bit of a rivalry between the Navy and the Marines. Jordan and I are pretty good friends. We've gone through all of flight school in Kingsville together. We classed up back 14 months ago and pretty much been flying together.
Yeah, me and Rob, we started ground school day one in this building together and went through everything pretty much together.
107, that looks good. Probably a little.
Anytime I was having issues, I would go talk to Rob, and Rob would get me straightened out. So
And we can keep working at Joker, but at Bingo, no kidding, it's time to knock it off and point toward home. We're creating a tactical jet naval aviator. Certainly most of the aviators coming through our program are likely to see combat, and yes, they'll be ready.
유진 1리의 비행 후 10년 동안 미 해군의 항공술은 답보 상태였다.
Most people would think that, hey, this is a triumphant event. This is a major demonstration. The Navy is going to fall over itself to buy aircraft. Well, that wasn't the case.
당시의 비행기는 나무와 천으로 제작됐고 폭탄의 무게도 감당할 수가 없었다. 하지만 배에 착륙하는 비행기를 지켜본 체인버스 대령은 새로운 미래를 구상했다.
Chambers could look down the pipeline and see that there were tantalizing new technologies beginning to appear on the horizon. New materials like aluminum, new structures like monocoques, new fuels like high-octane gasoline. Planes were going to get faster, they were going to go farther, they could lift more. They were also going to be more deadly and more maneuverable.
그리고 1차 대전 말, 비행기는 현대전의 일부가 된다. 기술은 영국이 선두를 지켰고 미국과 세계 최초의 본격 항공모함을 건조한 일본이 그 뒤를 쫓았다. 미국은 정찰용으로 수상 비행기를 도입했다. 하지만 비행기를 내리고 회수하는 작업 때문에 실용성이 떨어졌다. 체인버스는 뒤처진 해군의 기술력을 만회하기 위해 동분서주했다.
You have Chambers going and doing this incredible marketing job to a very conservative general board of the U.S. Navy, trying to sell a very new, very expensive technology, which, oh, by the way, required the building of some of the largest and most powerful warships in the world to prove that it was even viable.
해군 당국은 항공모함을 공상으로 치부했다. 그 무엇도 전함을 대체할 수는 없었다.
Up to this point, the war plans of every nation in the world still envisioned big gun battleships, 8, 10, 12 at a time, lobbing one-ton shells at each other until one side or the other gave up, and that would determine the fate of nations.
그런데 상황은 뜻하지 않게 전개됐다. 해군과 경쟁 관계에 있던 육군의 빌리 미첼 장군이 이 계획을 추진하고 나선 것이다. 미첼은 1차 대전 당시 육군 항공대를 이끌면서 전쟁에 대한 인식이 바뀌게 된다.
If you look at World War I, it was just a horrific experience. You had trench warfare, people killed by the thousands and hundreds of thousands. And you had people like General Billy Mitchell, who looked upon the airplane as a way that could change warfare and could get warfare out of the trenches.
독선적이고 추진력이 강했던 미첼은 군의 모든 항공 전력을 자신의 휘하로 통합해 독자적인 공군을 창설하고자 했다. 미첼은 유례없는 대규모 프로젝트를 추진한다. 비행기가 전함을 이길 수 있다는 것을 증명해 보이려 한 것이다. 1921년 7월, 그는 하원 의원들 앞에서 위력 시범을 펼쳤다. 먼저 낡은 전투 순양함 몇 척을 폭파했다. 그리고 가장 중요한 시범이 시작됐다. 900kg짜리 신형 폭탄을 실은 비행기들이 가라앉지 않는 배로 유명한 납포된 독일 전함을 향해 출격했다. 실험은 대성공을 거뒀지만 결과는 미첼의 의도와 정반대였다.
It triggered in Navy leadership a decision to look at, hey, we have this air power advocate, General Billy Mitchell, and if we don't embrace aviation and look at aviation as an adjunct to the fleet, then we may have an independent Air Force on our hands and also may have a Navy that's greatly diminished.
몇 개월 후 해군은 주도권을 잡기 위해 화물선 한 척을 개조해 항공모함 랭글리호를 탄생시킨다. 미국 항공모함의 시대가 열린 것이다. 랭글리호는 2년 동안 실험 운항을 계속하며 비행기 테스트와 조종사 훈련에 이용됐다.
Every day you're operating in 3 dimensions.
You don't have time to we call it breaking out the book and read and see what the problem is and fix it. You just don't have time to do that. So if you don't have things memorized cold, you can't put them into action quick enough.
We make our own mistakes and tell the plane to do the wrong thing sometimes. If things go wrong, they can go really wrong.
Some days you're just on, some days you're not. Hopefully we'll peak when we head to the boat and have a good day. We're practiced, we're well rested, we're ready to go, and we're at the top part of the game, close to being as good as we can be.
So they're going to move it in 500-pound increments when you give them the signals. So palm up like that, and then the palm down, horizontal is move it down.
I'm having a feeling that I'm gonna look and be like, wow, I have to land in that little spot, and that boat's not as big as I thought it was gonna be. But trying to keep those out of the head right now and just focus on what we were taught to do.
This will be a completely new experience for me and most all the other students. We have no fleet experience. It's gonna be loud, it's gonna be busy. I mean, they've been showing us all week of people killing themselves behind the boat, crashing left and right. It's all learning points you can take from, and remember, don't do that. I don't want to turn into a fireball. I'd like to land and come home at the end of this. The nerves crank up. It is completely foreign, and probably the most exciting thing we've done in our lives to this point. So. (1920년대) 중반까지
해군의 항공모함은 랭글리호가 전부였다. 비행기와 조종사들은 날로 발전을 거듭했지만 그것을 실전에 응용할 방법이 마땅치 않았다. 이 와중에 전면에 등장한 인물이 바로 조셉 메이슨 리브스 제독이었다.
Every move of these naval aircraft has a definite purpose and has the single aim of achieving a fighting fleet.
His nickname was Billy Goat Reeves because he had this beard and goatee that he wore. He's a hard charger, a football player at the Naval Academy, studied tactics, and he is a convert to naval aviation.
리브스는 정찰용 비행기만으로는 만족할 수 없었다. 그는 전함만큼 강력한 새로운 무기를 원했다.
For him, it very quickly became, how can we use this aircraft carrier not as a support weapon, but as an offensive weapon, as the offensive centerpiece of a naval force?
Admiral Reeves understood, even with Langley, that you had to maximize the number of planes that could be launched from that flight deck. Bringing the most intense concentration of firepower onto a target as possible.
리브스가 원하던 플랫폼이 등장한 건 1928년이었다.
The United States takes two incredible hulls of battle cruisers they were building, and they put all of their tonnage into these two ships, and they produced two of the most beautiful, powerful, and in fact the fastest warships in the world, the Lexington and the Saratoga.
리브스는 항공모함에 100대씩의 비행기를 실었고 불과 1년 만에 놀라운 장관을 펼쳐 보였다. 속사포처럼 비행기들의 이착륙이 이루어졌다.
It's a jigsaw puzzle. It's like baseball. It's a game of inches. You can pick a million different cliches, and I don't think any of them really accurately capture what happens on a flight deck with dozens of airplanes, some launching, some recovering.
There was this constant ballet going on, choreographed by the deck department, the air department, literally hundreds of young men using their bare hands and muscles to push 90 or 100 airplanes.
해군이 1929년부터 이른바 플리트 프라블럼 기동 훈련을 시작하면서 리브스의 이론이 시험대에 올랐다. 그리고 태평양에서 진행된 플리트 프라블럼 13 훈련이 대성공을 거둔다. 1932년 2월 7일 항공모함 렉싱턴과 사라토가호가 소속 함대를 벗어나 하와이로 향했다. 여기서 152대의 비행기가 모의 폭탄을 싣고 진주만 공격을 위해 출격한다. 그리고 비행장과 항만 시설에 폭탄이 쏟아졌다.
And why it's so important is because it showed that the carrier could operate independently and operate as its own task force and did not need to have the battle line there for support. And it showed the offensive firepower of the aircraft carrier.
해군은 항공모함을 통한 공격의 위험도를 최소화했지만 이후 10년간 기존 전략은 크게 변하지 않았다.
These are tough times. This is the Depression. We had existing battleships. They were there. They were paid for. We knew exactly how to employ them, and they worked.
그런데 이 훈련을 주시한 국가가 있었다. 태평양 건너 일본이 훈련을 면밀히 연구했다. 이후 10년간 일본은 항공모함 선단을 6개로 늘렸다. 또한 최첨단 전투기 제로센을 제작했으며 해군 조종사를 무려 3,500명이나 양성했다. (1941년 12월) 진주만으로 이동했던 항모부대는 세계 최강이자 최대 규모였다. 역설적이지만 진주만 공습은 항공모함이 차세대 초강력 무기임을 보여주는 첫 번째 증거가 됐다.
When you walk out on the deck in the mornings, it's pretty impressive. It's quiet, it's peaceful, and you start to pre-flight. You can feel the ship starting to wake up. You can hear the surf going underneath the hull. You can look out on the horizon, see the clouds, and you just breathe in that fresh air, and you go, "It's a good day to fly." Flew out as a division, a flight of 4, and everybody that was qualifying was solo, and that's another appeal to what we do, is that you get to go out there alone. It's on you.
Everybody says that your reputation, it doesn't matter how well you fly in the air, your reputation that everybody hears about is how well you land on the carrier.
And the formation part of the flying was really shaky. I thought we should have looked better coming overhead of the ship. Just some, and I think that was more nerves than anything, but the 3 students, we definitely, it was pretty ugly coming overhead.
To see that piece of American territory out there in the middle of the ocean is awesome. The first time when you're coming over and you look down, you kind of get the chills. I don't know if they were nervous chills or just, but wow, it makes you very humble.
When you get out to the boat, pretty much just spend 10 minutes giving yourself this like once-in-a-lifetime pep talk. And next thing you know, towers calling you down to get set up for landing.
You have an LSO who's standing next to the wires on the deck on the landing area, and he's grading all your passes.
They're listening for the sounds the engine's making. They can tell you've made a mistake before you see the mistake. Rolled out, the ball was a little high to begin with, and to keep it safe, bumped up the power a little bit. The landing area is angled to the left of the center line of the ship. So anytime you roll up behind the ship, the landing area is actually moving away from you, not just away from you, but to the right. So you're always lining up a little right. You'll see the plane kind of undulate. You'll see black smoke shooting out of the exhaust because you're in there fighting. Saw the LSOs go by, and they were all staring straight up at me. Saw the wires go by, it's 30 feet over them. I knew mid-pass that I just bought that bolter big time, so power back up and take back off.
A bolter is when they come around with their hook down and they land too long and they miss all the wires, and they have to go around and try it again.
The first trap was kind of a rough pass for me. Rolled out, center line. I believe it was a good start to a little high in the middle and trying to chip it down to a little high at the ramp.
The first trap is, there's no way to really describe how it's going to be. It's this screeching noise. Your body gets thrown forward in your seat. When you get that feeling, it's nice because you know you're in fact stopped and on the boat. First attempt at stopping on the boat, made it.
They taxi me over to get fuel, and you're still shaking, your foot's sitting there pulsing, and they taxi you up to the cat, shoot me off.
Everything goes dead silent. My first initial thought was that my engine just failed. I had to realize that I was still climbing and my airspeed was increasing to realize that I'm safely airborne.
Coming down a high start and trying to chip it down while remembering the first pass, which was my fly through down for the one wire. Didn't want to do that. Kept too much power on it. And I forgot to put my hook down. Around I went. So second day, the fangs came out a little bit more. I guess the cockiness came out maybe.
Jordan Meredith, one of my good buddies, he had a better second day, but it ended up being, I edged him out just by a little bit.
진주만 공습의 주축은 항공모함이었다. 일본기 350대가 수백 킬로미터 밖 해상에서 출격했고 2시간 만에 태평양 함대의 전함 대부분을 파괴해버렸다. 놀라운 전과였다.
Japan had not been stopped, and there were some people in the United States who believed Japan couldn't be stopped. That eventually Japan would not only control all of China, the Philippines, the Dutch East Indies, but the northern coast of Australia, possibly even India.
대부분의 전함을 잃은 미국은 태평양에서의 작전 계획을 대폭 수정해야 했다. 다행히 공습 당시 바다에 나가 있던 항공모함 3척이 남아 있었다.
You have this bizarre situation that the Japanese attack with aircraft carriers forces the United States into a carrier-based naval strategy.
이제는 미국의 항공모함이 일본 해군을 저지해야만 했다. 한편 엔터프라이즈호에서 출격한 SBD 돈틀리스 급강하 폭격기 2개 중대가 일본 항공모함 수색에 나섰다. 지휘관은 뉴욕주 버펄로 출신의 웨이드 맥클러스키 소령이었다.
McCluskey gets out to the point where he's been told the Japanese fleet will be waiting for you there. Gets out there, butkus. Nothing in sight.
맥클러스키는 망망한 대해를 바라보며 엔터프라이즈호로 돌아가야 할지 계속 가야 할지를 고민했다.
And McCluskey decides, well, I'm going to take my force of 2 squadrons of dive bombers and I'm going to have them follow me on a very methodical search pattern. Now, he has a little problem. He's running low on gas. And more than a few of his pilots are looking at their gas gauges wondering if the old man really knows what he's doing. And then McCluskey spots a Japanese destroyer. He figures, that Japanese destroyer is going at high speed towards something. I'll bet you that's the Japanese fleet.
구축함을 쫓아 북쪽으로 이동하던 맥클러스키는 3척의 일본 항공모함을 발견한다. 항공모함 두 척을 표적으로 잡은 폭격기 중대가 급강하를 시작했다. 몇 분 후 또 다른 미군 비행대가 현장을 우연히 발견하고 공격에 합류한다. 매클러스키의 폭격기 뒤로 거대한 연기가 피어올랐다. 일본군은 항공모함 3척과 비행기 300여 대 그리고 4천여 명의 병사들을 잃었다.
That man and that action took the Japanese Navy essentially out of the war at that moment.
The Japanese have gone from an absolute position of supremacy to they never go on the offensive ever again. And it all came down to about 4 dozen dive bombers.
이날 매클러스키를 따랐던 조종사들은 평범한 해군이었다. 그것도 대부분 신병이었다.
They had no right to win, but they did, and in doing so, they changed the course of a war.
미드웨이 해전으로 태평양 전쟁의 주도권은 미국에게 넘어갔다. 이후 2차 대전 기간 중 해군 비행기들은 태평양의 모든 주요 해전에서 우세한 화력을 과시했다. 항공모함의 존재는 위기의 순간에 빛을 발했다.
Congratulations, real proud of you. Well done. Keep that. Good show. Congratulations. Good work, Marine.
I watched every World War movie I could get my hands on as a little kid. Attack on Pearl Harbor, Battle of Midway. The history has shown that even small carrier forces can bring a lot to bear. The way things are, one person can change history, basically. So it's a very large responsibility.
What you got there?
Nice set of wings. It's a nice finish to a lot of hard work. So yeah, it's definitely a good time.
I let them bask in the glory of it for a day, and then it's like, guess what? The next challenge is ahead of you.